Hey, social worker students, how are you? Hope you're doing well. Hope you're enjoying the class. We are in week 10. Whoa, time flies when you're having fun. This week we're going to talk a lot about emotional interviewing. We're still going to focus on chapter 10 and assessing. What I'd really like to do is kind of combine those two things. How to use motivational interviewing techniques when you're doing an assessment. I think this is a very helpful skill for social workers. And motivational interviewing is very strengths based. And so it's something that you will use throughout your entire career. It's client centered, it is a directive method for enhancing intrinsic motivation to change by exploring and resolving ambivalence. Ambivalence. Okay, that's a term that I want you to really come to understand. What is ambivalence? You know, it's not necessarily laziness. It's not for lack of knowledge. It's not. It's basically because of a situation that a client finds themselves in, they just don't really care anymore. And so your task will be to help them figure out how to care. Motivational interviewing is collaborative. We talk about being client-centered, being person-centered, and helping to guide and elicit strength motivation to change. And that term is also very important, motivation. Your client's not going to change because you make them change. They need to change because they're motivated to. And I really like this quote by Pascal. He said, people are generally better persuaded by the reasons which they have themselves discovered than by those which have come into the minds of others. Again, as a social worker, it's not your job to change people or fix people. Your job is to give them a safe place to figure out how they can change and fix themselves. And, you know, that takes the load off of you, and it puts the load on the client, and that's where it should be. You're not a superhero, but you do have a superhero cape that you can present to your clients. When I was a child, my mother wrote a song. Do you notice I'm wearing my musical shirt today? Yeah, I wanted to share this little ditty with you, and I hope you enjoy it. I love it. My children loved it when they were little. My grandkids love it. When I was a school social worker, I used to sing it for the kids, and I'm going to show you the actions too, okay? Okay, you have to get a little worm. Wiggle, 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 worm, wiggled up a weed, wiggled out upon a branch and ate a crunchy seed. Wiggle till a blackbird pecked him with his bill. Then he said, "Uh-oh, I better hold still." Wiggle, 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 worm drank his weedy milk, ate his weedy spinach, then wrapped himself in silk. Come the spring, I mean to change for the good, said he. I will be a butterfly, just you see. Isn't that a great butterfly? Yeah. So that song, my mom wrote it to help little children understand that change was, sometimes it's hard, and you know, you start out as a worm, but you go through some challenging things, and guess what? You can become a butterfly. So I love that song, and I think that's a good kind of a mindset to have, that when we're helping people change, they have to go through it themselves. It's not about us. You know, maybe we kind of help them with the cocoon that they create. But change is challenging. It's definitely not an easy thing. People talk themselves into changing, and you can help them do that. I learn what I believe as I hear myself speak. Isn't that a beautiful quote? So why do people change? They change because they want to, and client motivation is the key to change, not social work motivation. Obviously, you're motivated to help and to be there, but your biggest motivation is to help them be motivated. Client motivation is greatly influenced by the process we create and by the place that we create for them. I really enjoyed reading your observational assignment, your essays. you did a great job with really observing. A lot of you gave me some really detailed information about the different scenes that you analyzed and wrote down your observation about. Observing is so important. I mean, just the clothing that we wear, right? It says something about who we are. I got this shirt at a thrift store in Pahrump. And I picture, there's a lot of people in Pahrump who have moved there from California, and I can't help but wonder if, somebody in the music scene in LA wore this once. But it spoke to me, and it says something to the people who see me wear it, right? One of my favorite strategies in working with clients who have tattoos is to ask them what's the story behind that tattoo? What does it mean? Tell me about that. People don't get tattoos just to, color pictures on their bods, right? They want to express themselves in a unique way. And you might experience with some clients, they've expressed regret for that tattoo. But most of the time, their eyes light up and they tell you a story. And it's about their father who passed away, or somebody that they loved dearly, or maybe it's a statement against suicide because they loved someone who took their life. And there's all kinds of reasons, and so that's a great strategy. When you're observing, this is a big part of what we do as social workers. We take in information and we analyze it, and a tattoo is a great place to start. So when you're conducting a motivational assessment, there's some prerequisites that you need. First of all, we want to understand what are going to be the benefits of the work that they do. We want to make sure that the materials that we use are at the reading level of the client. We want to make sure that we have material available for them that will outline the benefits of working with them. We have to set aside enough time to meet with the client in order to have a meaningful conversation. You're not going to do an assessment in 15 minutes, probably not even a half an hour. I would set aside at least an hour and a half for my initial assessment with the client, because an hour wasn't enough. And 2 hours might be too long for the client, but I would set aside that 2 hours so I could have 30 minutes of it to do the write-up that I needed. So I would set aside 2 hours, and an hour and a half of that was for face-to-face time with the client. So we want to be able to not necessarily tell the clients what to do. We want to educate. We want to give options. Some clients are going to resist everything you say. And so some people merely don't really want to be helped. They might be in denial about the challenges that they're in. The best way to do something, sometimes we might explain to a client that the best way to do something is this way, and then they do the exact opposite. A little bit like parenting, right? And sometimes you just need to tell it to them like it is. In the observation papers, some of you wrote about the character of Melvin from the As Good as It Gets movie, and I loved some of your insights, how you saw through his body language that he just felt like he didn't have hope anymore, right? And yet at the same time, here he is, this successful individual with some serious mental health issues, some OCD issues, inability to see that he was capable of change. And yet, and I think that it's ironic that in this movie, and a couple of you wrote about the doctor that he went to see, the psychiatrist or psychologist, whatever he was, who in some ways was very professional about establishing firm boundaries, but in other ways, showed absolutely, very little empathy for what Melvin was going through. You could tell in that scene that Melvin had manipulated this guy in the past. And it was interesting to me how the professional was depicted as a flawed individual. And Melvin actually learned more from his relationship with the waitress. He was able to change because he was motivated by wanting to connect with her. And it's a great movie for social worker types. And But I think it's just ironic and interesting that we see a level of professionalism from the waitress that perhaps we don't see from the doctor, the mental health professional. It's important to help our clients build resistance. Building resistance to change is something that they've perhaps done. So what we want to help them do is build resistance to the obstacles that didn't allow them to change. Okay, so some of the resistance to change is the ideas that are coming from within the client themselves, that they're being judged. When we send the solutions ourselves and they don't come upon them on their own, that is, nobody likes to be manipulated. Think about the people in your life that you give power to, and this is a really helpful exercise that I've used with a lot of different educational environments, particularly domestic violence clients, in the classroom with them, in teaching them the court-ordered anger management course. So, who do you give personal power to? Do you give power to people who manipulate you or who are critical of you? No. In fact, if anything, you withhold power from them. You don't want to give them any of your power. But if someone is nurturing, accepting, someone seems to really care, that's the kind of person you give power to. And I've seen this in my children and grandchildren. So when we validate where an individual is coming from, when we share with them that the concern that we have for them is real, and we validate the pain they feel, we express empathy, we reflect in our own body language and facial expressions the concern and care that we have for that individual, guess what? They're more likely to go, oh, you're a safe place, and open up. One of the challenges in the world of social work is that I know a lot of you are people you're empaths. You're people that others come to with their challenges. And so often you may not have a place to go. You may not have someone in your life that is a safe place. I hope you do. I hope that you are creating good, solid relationships with individuals you can trust, because you need that. You need that to get through. It's not an easy career choice, but it's so rewarding. Helping a client recognize what the roadblocks are, what is preventing them from overcoming and finding ways to change in their own life. What are some common reactions to pointing out roadblocks? Anger, right? Remember, anger is always a secondary emotion. When someone's expressing it, likely their primary emotion is something different, something like frustration or fear, helplessness, confusion. So anger is an easy emotion. Often when a client experiences feeling blocked in their ability to change, they might express anger. They might become more oppositional. They might be defensive. They may justify why they are where they are. They may feel overwhelmed and ashamed, trapped. They might disengage. And so validation is your best tool in these situations. No matter how participants enter the program, whether they're coming to you because it's mandatory, it's court-ordered, or if it's voluntary, so change is the expected outcome, right? What are some of the changes that we want to see in our clients? We want to see success. We want to see productivity, maybe certificates, right? My domestic violence clients would always get a certificate at the end of their 24 weeks. A diploma, a license, perhaps a full-time job, an increase in their income, maybe the ability to support themselves better and or their families. We can help our clients get ready for change and help them maintain momentum as we have clear ideas of what the positive outcomes of change will be. So there are stages in change. First of all, we have pre-contemplation. Okay, so we start out, maybe we're not quite ready. I like to think of the 12-step program. That first step is a doozy, right? And some of us sit in the gutter for years just looking at that first step. And if you're not familiar with the 12-step program, get familiar with it, because it's a very effective tool for change for clients. So that pre-contemplation is, I don't know why that word's so hard for me, but pre-contemplation is getting ready to think about something. Contemplation is actually doing it, actually facing it. Then we have preparation. Then step 4 is action. Step 5 is maintenance. And guess what step 6 is? Relapse. Yeah, relapse is often a big part of what we do. So let's illustrate these steps. Pre-contemplation. Problem? There's no problem. I'm fine. No, I don't need to quit drinking. No, it's not a big deal. Yeah, I know I black out sometimes, but it's okay. Yeah, I don't remember what I do sometimes, but I'm okay. Okay, that's pre-contemplation. Yeah, sounds like denial. Contemplation. I'm not sure there is a problem. Maybe yes, maybe no. Getting ready to face it. Preparation. I'm getting ready to make that change. Action. I have a plan and I'm moving forward. Maintenance. I'm trying. Relapse. Oops. I quit my job, or I got fired. Yeah. So why is it so hard? Why is it so difficult to change? It's a grind, right? It means we leave our comfort zone. Many of us are stuck in behaviors that we learned in childhood. So they're a part of our survival mechanisms, right? And it's familiar. That's a big, important word, familiarity. People do what's familiar. So sometimes you'll work with clients who are stuck in abusive relationships, and if you ask them, why do you stay? They might not know why. They watched their mother being abused by their dad. They grew up with that. And so when it was time to be an adult, they were attracted to manipulative relationships in which they felt familiarity, right? And even though they're experiencing being the victim of abuse, that's familiar. That's what they grew up with. So leaving that comfort zone, it doesn't sound comfortable to be abused, but if that's what you're used to, if that's what's familiar, it may be your comfort zone. What's outside of that comfort zone? Maybe it's the courage zone. What's outside of that? The terror zone, the panic zone. We're used to the routine patterns of our existences. Doing what we've done in the past minimizes the stress we feel. It's mental security to stay where you are. To experience courage, first you have to experience fear, right? So courage means trying things that you haven't done in the past. The strengths perspective is really important when you see a client. One of the strategies that I would use with clients who would come to me and tell me some horrific story about what they had endured in their life, and I would tell them, "You're a survivor. Wow, you're still here? That's amazing." This is where the strengths perspective comes in really great. Where did you find the courage to survive that? How have you gotten to this point in your life? Wow, look at what you've done. You have overcome so much. And what you do when you help define what their strengths have been in the past is you give them the gift of courage for the future and what they're facing, the courage to enter that panic zone and face change in their life. Why don't we do today what we know we should? Why all of us know exercise is important. Smoking's bad for you. Healthier foods are better. going to school, getting a degree, doing your homework, right? So many of us procrastinate these things. Why don't we do what we do? Familiarity. It might be familiarity. It might be it's less comfortable. I Have you heard the phrase mind over matter, mind over mattress? Sometimes getting out of bed is just hard. We watched, if you were raised in a dysfunctional family, and I would share this with my clients often, those of us raised in a dysfunctional family are more susceptible to debilitating depression. And so sometimes mind over mattress is huge. Getting to that social work appointment is challenging. So we figure out steps to get out of bed. We tell ourselves, okay, gonna first brush my teeth. That'll wake me up. I don't know what your strategies are, but whatever they are, you can share those with your client. Expressing vulnerability is okay. It's good. It's good as a social worker to express some vulnerability from time to time. So a goal is set after you dream. You're not going to set a goal until you can envision it yourself. Some clients need help envisioning that. Providing literature for them to show, that other people have overcome. There's a wonderful book by Jeanette Walls. If you're not familiar with this, it starts out in Battle Mountain, Nevada. It's her memoir. It's called The Glass Castle, and she's the daughter of a bipolar man and an alcoholic mother. Maybe it's the other way around. But anyway, there's a lot of problems in her family growing up. But her success story is phenomenal. This book, as well as the book Educated by Tara Westover, these are two books that I have recommended to clients because both of them, especially if you're working in rural Nevada, both of these take place partly in the part of the country where we are. And so it's very empowering for people to see others who have overcome. So why is being willing to change a priority? This is the first component of motivation is willingness, being willing to change. Why is that important for a person? And why does it have to come from them? Because it's not going to happen unless it does. The second component is readiness. Is the timing right for this change? You could advise a client to get out of an abusive relationship, but what if they are then victimized even more? And studies show that people living in abusive relationships, the most dangerous time for them is when they attempt to leave that individual. This can be the time when things hit the fan and the person can become even more violent. So is the timing right? That's why part of what we never do is advise. We don't advise. Even when a client asks specifically for advice, you can say, well, this is what I would do in that situation, but you need to decide what you're going to do because this is your life, not mine, right? The third component of motivation is ability. Is the client able to do this yet? Do people see a realistic way to change that they believe can work? Willingness, readiness, and ability, these are the three components that equal motivation. Part of your initial assessment needs to evaluate the client's readiness, their willingness, and also their confidence to make a change. I would often start by asking questions to help me understand what was going on with the client. Again, open-ended questions are your friend. And then we would analyze the questions, all right? Analysis is an important part of what we do. Be careful about being the one to initiate the change talk. We want the change to come from the client. We want the talk about change to come from client. Validating is your role. Changing is their role, right? There are 5 critical motivational interviewing skills that you need to master, okay? The first one is open-ended questions. Practice this on your friends and family. Practice asking open-ended questions, not closed ones. Not, did you have a great time today? No. Rephrase things so that they're open-ended questions. The second is affirmations, affirming those around us. Practice these with your friends and family. Practice affirmations, validating the good things that they're doing. And in parenting, we call it positive. We call it positive parenting, right? Finding what's right. Obviously, this is all about the strengths perspective. Affirming the good stuff that's going on in the world of education, in terms of elementary school education, primary education for children. We call it catching kids being good, right? A lot of you have worked in elementary school environments, or you have little kids, and this is great motivation, catching kids being good. The third interviewing skill to master is reflective listening, and you're all getting good at that. I hope you're practicing it, reflecting back what the other person is saying, reflecting them in your body language, in your facial expressions, but also in the words that you say, rephrasing what they say to you. And you know, when you practice this with family, they're going to say things like, "Don't use your psychobabble with me. Don't psychoanalyze me." But as you get better at it, they'll quit. Another motivational interviewing skill that's important for you to master is summarizing. Summarizing everything that you've learned about that individual. I would do this about 3/4 of the way through so that the clarification could happen. And the last interviewing skill is information, right? Compiling information and making sure that you have clarified the information that you have. Okay, well, week 10, please don't hesitate to call, text, or email me if you have any questions. All of you are doing really, really well. I know that there's times that you get discouraged, but you've got this. You can do this. There is such a need for you guys out there in this post-COVID world. I just heard a term this last week called mental health tsunami. That's what we're facing. People are, you know, as things open up post-COVID-19, we will see more and more people needing professional help. And so as you prepare to do this, remember that motivational interviewing will be your friend. All of these skills are going to really empower you as a professional. And don't forget to practice these on others, on those around you. And give me a call, give me a text, shoot me an email if you have any questions. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.